Saturday afternoon, we'll see Turf Moor welcome Championship football back to its ground after a one-year absence, with Burnley taking on Cardiff City for second-tier points. The Clarets were convincing winners at the home of Luton Town on Monday night, while the Bluebirds suffered a very disappointing defeat during their opening match of this season. Coincidentally, Burnley's most recent home fixture in the Championship was against Cardiff City on the 8th of May, which is also my wedding anniversary, when the strikes from midfield enforcer Brownhill, Ashley Barnes and Scott Twine secured a 3-goal success over Sabri Lamucci's relegation-threatened Bluebirds. What will tomorrow hold? Let's dig into it. Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World, and we're here for a slightly new look preview show. As we talked about last week, we've decided we're going to invite the opposition in on a Friday night to have a chat about the games. And I'm delighted that our first guest for our preview shows is Adam Dennett from the No Nay Never podcast. How are you, mates? Welcome.
Yeah, very well. I think we're still all living off the high of Monday night as Burnley fans. We've had a year of mostly disappointment, so it was just nice to go back into work on Tuesday morning with 3 points and a positive feeling.
Yeah, and I guess like with all the positivity, which Burnley have got, Cardiff fans are talking about how it's going to be a difficult game. We've got to make sure we don't get stuffed and things like that. For you guys, last season was quite brutal at times. It's very difficult. You lose a lot of games in the Championship quite often when you kind of go up and down. And so I suppose from your point of view, it was nice to see some silky football and score some goals. Before we get started, mate, what I would like to do is just tell the viewers and the listeners a little bit about you. So kind of tell us about you, tell us about the podcast and everything, and then we'll kind of go from there.
I'm Adam. Been following Burnley since I was a young boy. I think it's a similar story to most football fans. My dad took me on the game when I was 6-7 year old, and you don't look back after that, do you? I've got a wife and three girls at home, but my wife and all her family are Man United fans, so I'm in the battle at the moment of trying to convince them to be Clarets. I think mostly positive having a girlfriend and then a wife that likes football until you have children, and then most of my friends don't have this issue, but it's a nice challenge to have, and hopefully they'll end up loving Burnley just as much as I do.
Yeah, I had a similar thing whereby when me and my wife got together 20 odd years ago, we were both individually sort of season ticket holders and regular goers to Ninian Park and to Cardiff City Stadium later on. So that when we first got together, it was great. We'd go together and stuff like that. And then obviously when you have kids and when they're babies particularly, it's like, well, I want to stay, I want to go. And it was all a bit thing. But then as they got older, we kind of took them and whatnot. And I go with my son quite often now. But there's definitely pluses and minuses to it. But I think overall, having a wife or a partner who enjoys football is definitely a bonus, because, some of my friends, their partners hate football, and if you watch a lot of football, which most football fans do, that can be problematic, shall we say? But
I think it can become too much sometimes. How I just get obsessed with it all. But I think that's one of the reasons that it's really good that I've joined the podcast at No Nay Never. It's been going around 10 years. Really interactive with the fan base. Do a preview show and an analysis show every week. Get involved with like quizzes. Have an FPL section. We do some match day vlogs, but really engaged with the Burnley fan base. And I've been on the pod for 3 years now, but I was a regular listener before then. So it's all about collaborating with other podcasts and enjoying our football and having a good forum to do that. So listen to us if you're ever gonna. Well, in the meetings against Cardiff City, we always put a lot of content out there if you do want to see the other side of things. And it was great to have you on the podcast, on the preview show podcast with us last night.
Indeed, yeah, people should check that out. I shared it on my socials later, and I'll put it in the description to this episode as well. But I joined the guys over there yesterday, and that was out earlier today. So I saw that you do like a couple of you do like an analysis show, don't you? And I really enjoy the tactical side of football. So normally in my previews, I'll kind of work through and I look at the opposition first, look at their sort of predicted lineup, how they play, maybe where Cardiff can potentially, get in and stuff like that, and where we might be troubled by certain players. So obviously we've got you to do that this evening. So first of all, give us, is there any injuries or any players missing? And then your sort of predicted 11 that you think the manager will go with, rather than your 11, what you think the manager will go with.
Yeah, I think it's not so much injuries that are the biggest talking point at the moment. We've got a very bloated squad. I think we had 37 players when we spoke last night, and even between now and then, we've sold 2 players today, the first team squad. So Odebear, who was very good last Monday, really bright prospect. Someone who we probably didn't expect to sell as a fan base, amongst all the players that we do have as signed for Spurs today, just out of nowhere. Proper old school transfer where it just happens and no one's really heard anything about it. There weren't any rumblings for weeks and weeks like you normally get. So that's one key player gone. And then Scott Twine, who's been signed, was company's first signing. We thought he was going to be a key player. Clearly got talent. Was unlucky with injuries and not really had any momentum with his Burnley career. And he's gone to Bristol City, working with his old manager, I think, from MK Dons. So it's more managing the big squad. And I think it's probably not good for you guys that you're playing us this early, because we may lose more in the next couple of weeks. And this might be the strongest squad that we have all year. There's been links with Dario O'Shea going to Brentford, Sander Berge, has been linked with Man United and some foreign clubs as well. He missed out last Monday because of a thigh injury, but a quad injury. But obviously, who knows if that's true? Be interested to see if O'Shea's in the squad tomorrow. Hopefully, he will be. But if he's not, then I think we can take that as a sign that he will move to Brentford. So, in terms of our starting lineup, that I think we'll go with. In goal, who a lot of fans again didn't think we'd see this season after last year. He had a tough time of things, but he wasn't protected at all well. He was left so exposed by the tactics that we employed last season, and struggled. And he's been linked heavily with Newcastle, Liverpool, a few big clubs. I don't know if he'd go there to be a number 2, but we didn't expect him to be at Burnley at all. But he'll probably start. Having started last week, interesting to see what happens with that, given that we signed Lackey from Ipswich, who was pretty impressive for them last season. And then right back, it'd be Roberts. I can't imagine it being any different. And it was 4 at the back again. Hopefully O'Shea and Esteve. But if O'Shea is not available, then you probably see McNally or Alderkeel come in, because I think it'd be a lot easier to sell O'Shea now if Bayer and Ekdal were fit, but neither of them have been anywhere near fully fit for the last 6 to 9 months, really. When they have appeared, it's been fleetingly, so we can't say with confidence whether they're back anytime soon. And then left back, new player, Lucas Perez, who spent last year on loan at Celta Vigo and had a really impressive debut, 2 assists. Now 4-1 win last week, and it still feels a bit surreal seeing Burnley have Brazilians in the team. But all those years with Sean Dyche and Brexit ball. But and then into midfield, I think you can say with certainty that Cullen and Brownhill will play, depending on the opposition, and normally if we're at home or away, will determine Brownhill's role in that. If we're playing like last week, he might sit slightly deeper, but still try and break the line like he did with the first goal. And then there'll be a 4-2-3-1 with Vitinho on the right, Koleosho on the left, and then it was Odebear, but you'd probably expect Zarure or Amdouni to come in and fill that role. Both very talented. Both should be elite players at this level. And again, 2 that I probably thought we might maybe lose, but now we've lost Odebear for a really quite a large transfer fee. Maybe we don't need to lose any more players in that position. And then up front, be Lyle Foster. Can't see that changing. We've obviously got Wout Weghorst sitting in the wings, but again, heavily linked away. So that there's quite a lot going on. What can happen between now and tomorrow? But
might lose in a
I
couple
think
more.
that's my best guess at the team.
Okay.
I found it interesting what you said last night on our show that you'll probably say about how you can exploit us, because I think Cullen and Brownhill and that defensive midfield partnership is probably one of our strongest areas and was the last Championship promotion. But you said that was an area that you thought you might be able to exploit against this Burnley team.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, because obviously the Luton game and the Cardiff game will be very different in the way that we set up and how we try to play. But what I noticed in the Luton game is, obviously, you won 4-1, and you were playing quite good attacking football and pushing forward. So maybe that sort of double pivot was a bit further forward than perhaps it would be on a normal game. But again, because you're the home team, I'd expect you to, you're quite an attacking team anyway. And I think Scott Parker tends to play that brand of football. And it was just an area where I felt like we've got a couple of decent players who can, on their day, do something out of nothing or create something. And whether that was just an area where they might be able to find some pockets of space. In terms of the pre-season, and obviously you've only had the one game so far this season, but how was Scott Parker sort of, what sort of football is he playing? And how is he kind of lining up? Is it changing much in possession and your shape and stuff?
We've been pretty much kept behind closed doors in pre-season, so it's quite difficult to say. We only had one friendly that was actually live streamed, which was from Spain when we drew 1-1 with Cadiz, and Foster scored a really good goal. We seem to be playing possession-based football that game, and that's kind of the feedback we'd got from Bournemouth and Fulham fans, that it was slow build-up, side to side, patience, try and tire teams out, and then obviously try and find those pockets and win games that way. So it took us all by surprise on Monday to see what a mixed style of football we did play. We looked to threat from set pieces. We tried getting the ball in behind Luton quite quickly, and that's how we scored 2 of our goals and broke the lines really well. Foster running up the pitch 50 yards. So it was completely different and showed maybe that Parker's gone away and learned and adapted his style, maybe, or that obviously we can be adaptable with the players that we've got against the opposition. So it's very early to say. It wasn't what we expected against Luton. It might be more what we expect against Cardiff at home. So it'd be interesting to see how we shape up. But it has been the very limited time that we've managed to watch the 4-2-3-1 4-1-4-1 formation. But again, because of Odebear leaving, whether that changes anything, will it be seen some fans saying it'd be interesting to play 4-4-2 with these players, but I think he probably will stick with what we did. Well, the similar players, maybe some slight tweaks to the formation for tomorrow's game.
Yeah, so I mentioned on your you guys podcast that I think as the season progresses, I expect Cardiff to be really, really solid defensively. We've got some real good defenders. Perry NG was one of the best right backs in the Championship last year. Mark McGuinness, if he's still here, because Luton are after him for some big money. We obviously signed Callum Chambers. Gutas is a good kind of old school centre back, and then we've got a few really good young fullbacks, but they are like young, sort of 17, 18. So I think as the season progresses, I expect us to be defensively very good. I'm not sure if we're quite there yet. Like, obviously Chambers is new. It's a new partnership if he plays to get alongside McGuinness or Gutas. And we've also got, in my opinion, one of the better defensive midfielders. We just haven't had the right partner next to him. So Siopis will kind of be that destroyer in the midfield and just sort of try and sweep up. And previously we played Joe Rolls, who's on the ball, excellent, very technically great. And I think years ago he had a bit more legs. He's getting a bit older now, so yeah, he's not quite as mobile as he used to. He's not by any means, crawling around the pitch, as it were. But like, we have needed that bit of athleticism, and I think Alex Robertson will provide that. Whether he starts tomorrow is another thing. So for me, I think we're gonna sit in. We're gonna try and look after the ball when we have it, and we're gonna try and hit you on the break in the transition and things like that. If Siopis pinches the ball on the halfway line or something like that, then try and hit you at speed. And away from home last year, Cardiff were quite successful with that, especially at the start of the season. We had some really good results against Leeds and Huddersfield and a few other teams who maybe we wouldn't have always expected to go and get 3 points away from home. And we should have beaten Leicester away. We missed a massive chance 1-on-1 when it was 1-1, and then they scored sort of right at the death, and that was disappointing. But the performance was very good. Sunderland away as well. So I think for me, that's the blueprint that I expect Errol Bullock to go with. And I'm kind of interested in what your take is in terms of how you think Burnley will do against quite probably, I wouldn't say a low block, but certainly like a low to mid block of defenders, sort of two defensive midfielders sitting. It can sometimes be difficult to break teams down if they're structurally organised and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they take on that challenge. Not to sit on the fence. We played against a lot of those teams a couple of years ago with Company in charge, where we did probably employ similar tactics to what I talked about with Parker, just slowly try and break teams down. And we did have the quality to be able to do that with players like Rhodri and Benson on the wing, and then Ashley Barnes and Jay Rodriguez being a bit more of a battering ram up front. But we should have the quality to hopefully break a lot of the teams down that maybe will come to Turf Moor and try and do that. But it's still such a new, even though the playing staff are the same, having a new manager in there, and obviously playing against teams that we're not as familiar with as playing against, because it were a completely new squad last year, and we just got used to getting battered week in, week out. And that mentality of being the dominant team might play a part in it. Like going away to Luton, I don't think anyone really knew it wasn't a massive expectation to win. I think a lot of Burnley fans would have been happy enough if we'd have come away from that game with a draw beforehand. So going into a game where we are favourites and we're expected to be on the ball and probably dominate the ball and try and break you guys down, that's a different pressure than going away on the first day of the season where it's supposed to be a tough place to go. And if you do get beat, no one's going to really bat an eyelid and say that's a massive surprise. Whereas if you guys turn up and are defensively well set up and have a threat on the break, that in football, first goal, if you grab the first goal, the mentality of those players is going to be really tested, no matter how good they are at that level. A lot of football is played in your head, and I don't know how they'd react to that, even with the fresh impetus that Parker's brought and what seems to be a feel-good factor, again, off very limited information. The players seem to be happier and together, even the ones that weren't showing that last season. It's going to be a tough game, I think.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting. There is an interesting aspect to playing the relegated teams earlier on in the season, because as you mentioned, last season you lost more than you won. So there is an element of the mental side of it where the players are used to losing. So if they do concede an early goal or a goal or two, even though they're favourites to go up and they've had a good start, that it's difficult to change that mentality sometimes, of kind of getting used to, we're 2-0 down or whatever again. So I do think there's an element of that, but I expect it to, it's Burnley at home. They're impressive in the first game, so you'd expect them to be, strong and very attacking, looking to win the game early on. Do you give us a player that we should look out for from your team who could be, if they have a good game, you're fairly confident that the team will have a good game. And also maybe you mentioned what I had said about the sort of little pockets of space between the defence and midfield. If you were the Cardiff coaches, where would you try and get at Burnley?
I think firstly, our key player, in my opinion, you mentioned him on our podcast last night, is Josh Cullen. In the past, in our previous championship winning season, everything he just such quality on the ball, such dynamism and just fierceness off the ball. He gets booked after games, but he's just in there with all the energy and just keeps us. He has a good game, and we can control the game in his area of the pitch. That allows the attacking players to do what they need to do to hurt teams. So he's so consistent at this level. He was our player of the season a couple of years ago in a team that had a lot of flair. I think everyone just recognised that he was the key cog in the machine, and we just didn't. When other attacking players were missing, I don't think you missed them as much because someone else came in and played a very similar role. But if Cullen's not in our team, that is always a big miss. And then in terms of where you can hurt us, I think on the wings, fullbacks, we've been vulnerable for the last couple of years. Again, it was better last week, and it's a really good early sign that we managed to deal with the physical side of the Luton's game and a lot of crosses into the box. But I think when we played you a couple of years ago, you got a late equaliser at Turf Moor. Seem to remember with a cross. Oh no, it weren't at Turf Moor. Sorry, at Cardiff City Stadium. Yeah, a late ball into the box and a header. And we had a run of games that season where we kept throwing away leads late. So we've got Roberts, who's the same fullback as 2 years ago. You guys will be very familiar with, and Perez, who we mentioned, as a really good attacking impact on the side last week. But I don't have any clue about his defensive capabilities, and he wasn't really tested that much against Luton on Monday. Mm-hmm. So I'd say based on the Premier League last season and the Championship the year before, crosses into the box have been our Achilles heel, and defending set pieces as well. But I think that Esteve and O'Shea did look a lot more last week, which is a positive sign for us. But I think that's probably the area that most teams have hurt us in the last couple of years. And that was one of our main problems last year. We were against teams who were better at football than us, and they could bully us. It were completely different than any other season in the Premier League we've had. And you say obviously you get downtrodden when you lose games. I think we were always fighting when we were in the Premier League under Dyche, and you could always see a way that we could get a result, even if you were losing with 10 minutes left. Via a set piece, you only need a free kick on the halfway line, and you've got Tarkowski, me, Barnes, Wood all piling into the box, and you've got a chance. Whereas Arsenal were coming to Turf Moor and just absolutely battered us from set piece. Like, they cut through us easily, and then every time they got a set piece, it looked like they were going to score. So what chance do you have? You felt like you're going to games with no route to win, which obviously is different. Hopefully different to this season, but. That's where I'd say our biggest area of vulnerability is based on last year or two.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because set pieces was where we scored the majority of our goals last year. And also we brought in Chris Willock from QPR, and although it was a very disappointing result last week, O'Dowda at fullback and Willock on the left, they worked really well together. They both were very good. Excuse me, sorry. And so that's quite interesting. That's a potential area, and I think particularly if we can get at you on the transition, that left hand side will be where we have a lot of the width. The right hand side, Perry and G doesn't tend to overlap as much, and then it'll depend which winger plays off the right. But yeah, it's an interesting one for sure, because it's almost like a free game for Cardiff, because nobody expects Cardiff to get anything from this game. Nobody expects, even Cardiff fans, I don't think. Especially after watching the Luton game, I think there was a lot kind of a big sigh and it's going to be it's already a difficult start, and that's not made it any easier. So, from a Cardiff point of view, I expect I don't expect Errol Bullock to make a great deal of changes other than one or two forced changes. I would like to see him play with three at the back, but I think there's only a very slim chance that he'll do that. And so I want to make this clear to the viewers. I'll go to some questions from the live chat for you just before we finish. But this is not what I think the side should be. This is what I think the manager will pick before people start shouting at me. So I think he goes Halworth in goal. I think he'll go O'Dowd left back, probably Gutas and Chambers, although a lot of that depends on the Mark McGuinness situation. Perry NG right back. I think he'll stick with Joe Rawls and Siopis away from home. Robertson only started for the first time on Tuesday in a long time, so he'll be on the bench. Ramsey will be in the 10, and then I think it'll be Willock, probably at Ollie Tanner again off the right, and I think he plays Mate up top, which actually I would like to see us go with someone with a bit more pace up front, because I think if we're going to get anything and get a bit of a smash and grab, I think we need that someone running in behind. And Mate is an old school target man. When he plays up there, he's just gonna try and get flick-ons and hold the ball up, and he's not going to run in behind, which I think we need. I'd also, I'd play Ruben Colwell, but I think he'll be on the bench as well. Aaron Ramsey was very important to us at the start of last year when we played teams like yourself who, were going to play attacking football and were expecting to beat us. He played a big role in those games in that sort of number 10. But as someone just said in the comments, he's out injured. So if that's the case, Ruben Colwell will come straight in to the 10, I'd imagine. I'd certainly hope so. And I think I said yesterday, Ruben Colwell is not your stereotypical number 10. I think he's like 6 foot and he's like broad shoulders. He's a real big boy, but he's very skillful. The biggest issue I think with him is sometimes his decision making, because he's still young and he sometimes will go for that sort of individual bit of brilliance, whereas he could slot someone in. But as that gets better, I expect him to really kick on. So that'll be interesting. What do you expect from Cardiff City? Like, where do you think Cardiff City will finish this season?
Well, you'd hope that they'll be able to build on the consistency of having the same manager going into the season. It's clear that he's made some positive changes, and you've got some talented players in your team. So I think finishing 12th last season has got to be seen as a positive. Top half finish, I think you mentioned a 3-year plan. Another top half finish should be within sight. Whether outside of the top few teams that you expect to be up there, there's going to be a couple that take you by surprise, like there are most seasons, and you'd hope that there's going to be a couple of teams in that middle bracket who can push for top 6 if they can get the consistency and stay injury free, and if you've got some young players who hit form, hopefully they can only get better and better. So if I had to predict, I'd probably say around the middle again. But it seems like there's a positive feel about the club at the moment, more than there has been in recent years with the ownership. And the only time they really make it into mainstream media is when they've done something silly again. So from an outside perspective, it's a lot quieter probably towards Cardiff. But that's a positive thing for you guys. I'm interested to know, like, obviously the dynamic now of Premier League teams coming down, and they're automatically seem to be up at the top of the league again. Obviously, you had Leicester, Southampton, and Leeds last year, which were obviously probably bigger clubs than would normally come down in a relegation. And you'd argue that Burnley, Sheffield United, Luton is probably less of a challenge in Championship. But do you feel like it's as competitive as it used to be? Because back in the noughties and around where you got promoted the first time with Mackay, it seemed like it was a lot level playing field. And I know obviously there's always been the exaggeration of the Premier League versus Championship, but it seems ridiculous that a team like Burnley, who've come down now, we've come down twice in 3 years, and our fan base basically expect us to bounce back. The majority of them expect us to go back up. And then you look at examples like Stoke, Swansea, yourselves, who have been there, come back down, and Norwich as well. It's not always that easy. It only takes a bad season or two. Did you feel when you came down with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the second time that you were going to bounce up? And is there a warning sign for Burnley there as well?
I think with Solskjaer, we probably didn't, because I think people didn't really rate him as a manager, and he made some odd decisions with his selections and stuff like that. But generally, I think, honestly, I do think it's still as competitive as it was previously in some ways, because I think on it, like, Championship is so weird. Like, we went last week, we were very poor. And it's the sort of league where, you've started really well, beating Luton 4-1, which is, I don't think anyone expected either side to have a victory by that, that amount. But it's the sort of league where tomorrow Cardiff will go and win 1-0. It's very, very odd and strange, and it throws up those strange results. But taking what you said, I do think that probably over the last 5 years, maybe a bit longer, the parachute payments just seem to be making more and more of a difference, whereby the teams at the top are the ones who've got the most money to spend, which, and there's a lot of the things which people don't like about the Premier League. But I do still think in the Championship, you've got that kind of sporting integrity side of it. And it's competitive, it's enjoyable. But also, I did say before the season started, I wasn't sure if Burnley would automatically run away with the league. I do think you'll go up, but I didn't think you'd run away with it, simply because you've got such a big squad. It's very difficult to keep all those players happy. And we found out last year we had one or two players who were a bit frustrated, and it spreads so quickly within the squad where players are not happy and there's a bit of moaning, or they fall out with the manager. And I think I said to you yesterday, like Scott Parker, I think he's a great coach, but I don't find him to be a very likable character. And if he's like that with the players, and then you've got, 10 players who want to play and they can't, and it can all get negative quickly, if that makes sense.
And to agree, I think all the Burnley fans acknowledge at the moment our squad's way too bloated, especially in the attacking areas of the pitch. And like you said, it's important. You've got some talented players there who want to get in the prime of their career, who want to be playing games and expect to play games in the Championship. So yeah, it's going to be a hard balance if we don't manage to lose some of that squad depth before the close of the window, which is a very strange situation to be in, having such a tight squad under Dyche for so many years. It were really close-knit squad. We'd barely have over 20 players. We always use the least players. And it worked well for us, and you could see how tight-knit they were as a group. Whereas last year, you could see it just all falling apart right in front of our eyes. And yeah, there probably is a risk of that again.
Yeah, I hate the fact that the window's still open when the season starts as well. Like, I really think it should close, and like last week sort of thing.
I hate to say it, but I actually feel for Leeds. Like, I know they shouldn't have those sort of silly things in the contract, but to lose such a key player after one game, like, everyone knows how much money they brought in. They're just going to be held to ransom now. And like I said, I'm not a fan of Leeds at all. And I'm expecting them still to be a rival at the top end of the table. So it's probably a positive for us. But that situation there is just, seems
ridiculous, isn't it?
Stupid,
it's ridiculous. And in some ways, it's similar for us. Like, I think we're going to lose Mark McGuinness, probably not for 10 million, but about 8 million or something. But I think we're going to lose him so late in the window that even though we've got a bit of money to spend, it'll be too late to get anyone in who we want. It looked like we were lining up Scott McKenna to replace McGuinness, but he got fed up of waiting for the McGuinness deal to happen and went out to Spain. And I just worry with that, because McGuinness is our best ball-playing centre-back, and he's really good defensively. I wouldn't sell him because he's 23, and he's only going to go and have a better season this year. So let's, if he wants to go next year, then let him go. And the price will be even higher. But it's a difficult one. Right, Adam, let me throw a couple of questions at you from the live chat. Nothing too taxing, and then I'll ask you the quiz questions. See how many points you can get, and we'll let you go. First and foremost, what do you think? What's your prediction for the game tomorrow?
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Burnley win. I think it will be a tough game. I think you will cause us problems. So 2-1 and a Lyle Foster brace to get him off the mark. We need him fit and firing this season. So that's where I'm going with it.
I'm going to go for a brutal, boring, horrible 1-0 Cardiff. We're going to bore the pants off Turf Moor and nick a goal late on through Ruben Colwell. That's my prediction. But there's probably a bit of hope in there more than belief. But, we'll go with it. Right, so a couple of comments for you. Reese says, what are your thoughts of the video between Company and Goodmanson?
Yeah, I think Company's taken a lot of flack for this. And probably you can see why he's gone in on him. It seems like Goodmanson hasn't done that much and he's ripped him to bits. But I think you've got to also think that that can be very much taken out of context. It's one clip. We don't know what's happened before and after. And you've also got to bear in mind that the owners and the production company will have put all that together after Company's gone off and left to Bayern, and probably have all sorts of footage of them over the season, and they can manipulate that as they want for this show. So these sort of things will probably happen on a training ground. It's not great. Goodmanson's been a great player for Burnley over a number of years, and I think the majority of Burnley fans see Company as the massive villain from that, and it's just added more scorn to the situation. But I think everyone were under pressure. We could all see that it were falling apart on and off the pitch. So it's no real surprise. And when Company's been such a winner all of his career, it must be frustrating at times if players aren't performing to the levels that he wants. So I can see both sides of it. I'm kind of trying to take it with a pinch of salt, but I think it's I think a lot more wider fan base will probably enjoy Mission to Burnley Series 2 than they did Series 1, because it's boring when things go to plan, doesn't it, really? Sunderland is definitely the best of those, and that's because of how chaotic it was.
But also, I think, because he's gone now, I'm sure there'll be a lot more in there which they wouldn't have put in there before.
Yeah.
My interpretation of it, very quickly, was I think maybe Goodmanson is someone who does moan a little bit in training, which is fine. You get that sometimes. And I just think Company was under pressure, having a bad day, or he was annoyed about something else, and he's kind of just taking it out on him. And I love that Goodmanson was sort of like, no, I wasn't moaning, and he stuck up for himself. But I also agree with you. Happens a million times a day over football grounds around the world. I didn't think it was that big a deal that everyone made it of, but I don't know. Maybe in today's world, you can't get away with it. I don't know. For me, it didn't seem that outrageous on either part. It just thought, I'm sure they sort of made up afterwards and laughed about it.
I'm sure, you don't know in the moment. Afterwards, it probably all fine and dandy. But
and we also didn't see the drills and stuff before it in that clip, so you don't know what happened in the drill. He might have been moaning, or he might have, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I did like, and I wish that Cardiff coaching staff and manager would implement it a little bit before the Swansea games, is he was like, it's life and death. It's so important. And he was trying to impress on him and the team how important it is. And that's sometimes, particularly against Swansea away, we always seem to kind of fall apart. And the players almost seem to not realise how much it means to the fans and to the community. And I think that is something I would love to see Errol Bullock get across to the players. Other question for you.
That were just sorry, very quickly. That were absolutely got the fans up and behind Company for those first two derby games when you were talking like that, because we had so many years of Dyche, even though he was successful in the derby games, just playing it down as just another game.
Yeah.
And like Company said, it's a cup final for the fans. I think that's where Duff went wrong as well, weren't it, last year? But we don't need to go into
that. Reese says, are you excited about Ronaldinho's son?
Yeah, why not? That was taken us all a bit off guard. But the last couple of years with the American owners have been a bit mad. Signing Brazilians all over the place. Never thought I'd see the day when we just got Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood up front. But no, it's exciting. The thought of Ronaldinho sat watching next to me in the Bob Lord wooden stand is quite the idea. But I was quite disappointed to hear as a left back his son. But no, it's all good. Scott Parker's tried to play down the excitement, but I think we'll get carried away anyway.
Yeah, you got it on you football fans. And then lastly, Matthew says, does Adam think Craig Bellamy will do well in the Welsh manager's job?
I hope so. And a few years ago, I'd have never thought that I'd be wishing Craig Bellamy well, to be honest, after his Blackburn history. And again, he was one of them players that I mentioned to you last night about Darren Pearce. I always thought was not very nice on the pitch, but if he were on your team, you'd probably love him. It took us, well, it definitely took me and probably a lot of Burnley fans by surprise on when you hear him speak, how thoughtful he is about the game, how much detail he can go into about the game, and his philosophy, and how calm he came across in the interviews and on like the outside of the match stuff. Every now and again, you'd see company just like give him a nudge, and he'd go and give the fourth official some hammer. But overall, I'd say he were a real calming influence on the squad, and the Burnley fans really took to him, and I think he took to Burnley as well. I know you've done a podcast with him. I'm meant to listen to that today, but I will be giving that a listen. Really interesting character. I think he's learned a lot through his life experiences, and seems really mature. And I really hope he does do well. I don't know what a lot of the youth players come up through Wales, like Colwell with 10 caps. It seems like you've got a lot of good young players. So hopefully he'll be able to bring the best out of them. But yeah, I hope, and I think he will have a good coaching career. He will link with the Burnley job. I think a lot of Burnley fans might have been hesitant to give him it just because of his lack of experience at this level, and it being it's vital that we do try and get back at the first hurdle. And the experience that you can bring in with Parker, who's got 2 promotions, could prove critical. But if he would have got the Burnley job, we'd have got behind him. Success, whether it's at national team level or club level, as a number 1 or a number 2, completely changed my opinion of him the last couple of years.
Good stuff.
Right. Really liked by the Burnley fans.
Yeah, cool. That's good to hear. Right, to finish off, mate, with something we're going to do with the fans from different teams each week, and we're going to create like a bit of a table to see who's top and who knows their club the best, I guess. You have basically 30 seconds to name. Just wait for the sirens to finish. There we go. The joys of living in Cardiff. So basically 30 seconds to name as many players as you can who played for Burnley and Cardiff City. You get a point for each one. This particular week, it is really difficult because there's only a few which I could kind of think of off the top of my head. So I'll give you like a couple of seconds just to finish, just to have a little think, and then we'll start the timer in a minute. But in the meantime, guys, if you could please make sure you subscribe to Cardiff City World. Take a look at Ace Podcast Nation. Got a host of all different podcasts, including a 2-part podcast with the new Wales manager, Craig Bellamy, from the other week. Make sure you check out No Nay Never Ped podcast. I did an episode with them previewing the game last night, which is out now on podcast platforms and their YouTube. And then also, I'm sure we'll do some more stuff with them around the return leg as well. But Adam, it's been a pleasure to have you, mate. I'm going to start your 30 seconds. Do you have any?
Yeah, I think I've got 2.
Right, okay, there we go. Let's get that right.
That's not great, but
you never know, mate. As the season goes, that might turn out to be good. Right, we'll start your 30 seconds now.
Peter Whittingham, we had him on loan from Villa, and Stephen Thompson, who I spoke to you about last night. Very fond memories of him. And other than that, I'm a bit stumped.
There was a goalkeeper.
How many are there?
I found about. I think I found 3.
Did Kurt Nogan play for you?
Yes, he did.
I think I'm going to have to settle on 3.
Okay, there we go. That's not too bad. 3 points. There was another one. Roger Hansbury, which is a goalkeeper from the. Was it Roger Hansbury or was it John Halworth? I forget that. From the
I wouldn't have got any of those.
Late 80s. Kurt Nogan's a good shout, though, mate. That was one which I thought people, you might struggle with that one, but yeah, Roger Hansbury, Kurt Nogan, Peter Whittingham, and of course Stephen Thompson were the sort of four which I was able to think of. Tom Heaton as well, of course.
Oh no,
media reader, yeah. So what do we have? We have three there for you. So you'll be you're top of the league at the moment, mate. So what can I say? There you go. Adam, thank you very much for joining us, mate. Thank you to everyone else who's joined us in the chat and across Twitter and YouTube. Please do make sure you follow and all that good stuff. It really helps us out. Leave comments, get involved in the conversation. In the comments below, actually, after the video, what do you think the score will be tomorrow? Can Cardiff pull off the heist of the season by getting an away win at Turf Moor tomorrow? It's going to be tough, but it's definitely going to be interesting. Thank you, Adam. And,
cheers. All the best for the rest of the season as well. And hopefully speak to you later on.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I'll be back for the breakdown live on Sunday night. And the boys will be back for the post-match show tomorrow night to discuss all the things from the game. Thank you very much. See you soon.